0.5 for the smallest line you can go, the 0.8 for the safest line you can go, and 1 if you want to go that size for your window lights and every other part of your trim, or just the entire building or whatever. You keep those rules in mind, you're going to be well safe when you do the flat printing, and nothing's going to disappear. Everything's going to look good. But here's the thing about it though. Let's say you look at the building after you put it together, because you're never really going to see it in perspective in 3D. It looks okay. But to really understand it, you have to put the building together. And once you finally put it together, maybe you put together a test print or a prototype, and that's another thing you can do. You don't have to put all the detail in. You can just build the building, make sure it looks what you want. You would save a lot of film that way, let's put it that way, and a lot of time and effort. I've even gone to the point where I would print at 40% the same building to see if it even works, just to save on film. And I have actually created Z scale by doing that, which I was surprised, because it just turned out that way. But anyway, and they actually work. So I know if it works at Z scale, it'll work at O, HO. So all the prints that are in Lindy's store, if you asked me to build them in O gauge or HO, I could do it. But the problem I'm going to have is the bed size and the amount of time. It takes a lot of time to print an O gauge building, and no one wants to pay $700 for a building that's been printed that long. That could take 60 hours. I mean, it's crazy, especially with the details that we do. That's why I like N scale, because I think my most print was maybe 40 hours, and I broke it up in 3 days. And I think the glass factory I'm working on now is going to be close to that. I know this one alone was 35 hours in just the printing time for this little building. But it's not so much the fact that it's the size, it's not so much the details, it's the size of the print. And it is a detail too, because that also adds to the printers slowing down and speeding up type stuff. That just takes time the more detail you get. Anyway, so getting back to all that, now I was thinking about, okay, I don't like it, I got it together, it could go a little smaller. Well, if I followed my golden rules, like I said, doing the 0.2 on the windows and the 0.5, when I go down, say I go from, like, say at 100%, I go down to 92%. I just want to go a little, maybe 95 on the slicer. Everything else will work really well, but if I went with the slicer at 95 and then I went with my lines at 0.5, they're going to disappear. They're going to go down to either 0.4 or 0.3, and they're just going to be gone. And that's going to normally be in the windows more than anything. I'm going to see that thing that disappears, especially when I get into the real intricate lights for the details and stuff. Now, here's a safe rule. If you stayed at 0.8, you can shrink down it, probably even a Z scale, and you probably be okay. Because 0.8 will turn into 0.5. 1 is really, really safe, and that'll turn into 0.8. So that's a key thing you want to think about when you're designing your building, and looks good on paper and it looks good on the 3D model, but when you print it out and you think it's too big, and I have had people complain about that, and I have had to go back and make the print smaller. You can do your building that way, but your lights and your windows and your details are going to disappear. Here's my suggestion for that. And this is the beautiful thing about flat printing, right? You can go ahead and go to your dimensions and take all your 0.5s and make them 0.8. So here's my new suggestion to you. You would be safer at using 0.8 as your smallest line. If you're really, really picky about your scales, and like I'm going to show you in a little bit here, I'm not. And I'm going to show you the guy, I'm going to show you the car, and I think it came out pretty good. And I explained to you what I'm going to be doing with this building, and it's going to look really nice. Now, this is the building I was telling you about, and if you can see, I'll just show you a little bit of the building. This is the one that I designed for that guy who asked me to make it because he fell in love with that building. But anyway, there it is, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be putting these little lights on there. Now, the lights aren't going to be to scale, of course, because of the fact that I'm working with really tiny fairy lights and SMDs. I am making smaller bases, but I thought it looked really cool to put 4 lights in each 4 corner and then make like a little diorama for it. But what I want to talk to you about in the flat printing process, if you look at the car real close, and you look at that little guy standing in the corner there, you can use that as a scale measurement to try and figure out, okay, are the windows right? Are the doors right? Let's say I'm not happy with that. Let's say I want to make it a little bit smaller. Well, then I'll go back to what I was talking to you before and then shrink it. And that's the process of it, using little models. Now, these are store-bought models. I'm not going to try and reduce those. Those are real N-scale models. And that gives me a good idea. Now, there are some things you're not going to get right all the time. But maybe you'll be just like, oh, you know what, that's pretty close. I mean, he could be a small guy. But it could go, if you're really, really picky, it could go a little smaller. But in my opinion, I think it's good enough. Okay, now let's get back to the main video. But personally, for myself, if this was on my layout, I'd accept it. I would love it. I wouldn't change anything of it. But maybe somebody want to go a little bit smaller, that's possible. We might kit this one. We're not sure, like we talked about before. It's up to Lindy what she wants to put in her store or not. But this is going to be a nice little building. I'm really happy. I'm really loving the wash on it. I'm loving the way it's coming out. The design's actually, in my opinion, really, really detailed and really good. But that's a tip I want to pass on to you about the flat printing. And that's the neat thing about flat printing. If we did this in full scale, in solid build like a sculpture, it ain't going to work that same way. You're not going to have the ability to change those windows. You're not going to have the ability to go back in there and change those dimensions without changing the whole thing. And it's just going to disappear. Some of the lines are just going to disappear. That's just the way it's going to be. So there's another argument for flat printing. And I was also thinking too, once I get to 500 subscribers, and this is the truth, this is how the work algorithms and that's how YouTube works. I don't get any special prizes other than the fact that I can start selling merchandise and start advertising things that we have in our store and Amazon and things like that.